you been? I've beamed and beamed.
Sorry, miss. I was giving myself an oil job.
What if I told you one of the most important science fiction movies ever made nearly collapsed under its own ambition? Forbidden Planet, the 1956 classic that changed the way Hollywood thought about science fiction, wasn't just about robots, monsters, and distant galaxies. Behind the scenes, it was a storm of censorship battles, wild production choices, drunken actors, and innovations that no one believed could work. And here's the kicker. Behind the futuristic sets and groundbreaking effects, the production was just as wild as what ended up on screen. These are 14 weird facts about Forbidden Planet, and some are so unbelievable you'll wonder how this film even survived production. From bands over miniskirts to a drunk robot operator, from experimental music to failed remakes, this is the untold story of the sci-fi movie that changed everything. Number 1. Banned in Spain. Of all the controversies, the strangest one came from Spain. The movie wasn't banned for violence, politics, or its strange electronic sounds. No, it was banned because Anne Francis wore miniskirts. Her futuristic dresses were too short for the strict standards of Spain's Franco-era censors, who saw them as scandalous. The movie was pulled entirely and couldn't be shown for 11 years. It wasn't until 1967 that Spaniards finally saw Forbidden Planet, long after the miniskirt had become an international fashion symbol. By then, what once caused outrage looked tame compared to the cultural revolution sweeping Europe. It's one of the rare cases where a sci-fi classic was censored not for aliens or monsters, but for fashion. Number 2. The Drunk Robot Operator. Robbie the Robot may have looked mechanical, but inside was a stuntman named Frankie Darro, tasked with bringing him to life. The suit was heavy, cramped, and expensive, costing MGM over $100,000 to build. But Darro had a problem. He enjoyed his martinis. During one lunch break, he had 5 too many, climbed back into the massive suit, and tried to perform. The result? Robbie wobbled, stumbled, and eventually toppled over, nearly wrecking one of the most expensive props in Hollywood history. The crew was horrified. Imagine losing the centerpiece of your movie to a drunken fall. Darrow was quickly fired and replaced, but the story lived on. Every time Robbie appeared on screen after that, the cast and crew knew they'd narrowly avoided disaster. Number 3. Robbie the Robot's rise to fame. Robbie wasn't just a prop, he was a star. MGM spent a fortune on his design, and it paid off. His futuristic look captured the imagination of audiences, and he quickly became one of the most famous robots in film history. After Forbidden Planet, Robbie appeared in The Invisible Boy and became a frequent guest on TV. He showed up in The Twilight Zone, Lost in Space, Columbo, Wonder Woman, Mork and Mindy, and even in comedies like The Love Boat. His cameos became a running joke in Hollywood. If you wanted to wink at classic sci-fi, you brought in Robbie. Even decades later, he popped up in Gremlins and The Big Bang Theory. In 2017, the original prop sold at auction for $5.3 million, making him the most expensive movie prop ever sold. Not bad for a robot who once fell flat on his face thanks to a drunk operator. Number 4. The animated monster from the id. Monsters of the 1950s usually meant rubber suits and rubber scares, but Forbidden Planet gave audiences something new. The monster from the id, a terrifying creature born from Dr. Morbius's subconscious. Instead of building another suit, MGM hired Disney animator Joshua Meador to bring the monster to life through hand-drawn animation. The glowing, spectral beast was unlike anything moviegoers had seen. Some theaters even cut the monster out of screenings, worried it would traumatize children. And it wasn't just scary, it was symbolic. Animators even hinted at Morbius's connection by giving the beast subtle human traits, like the faint outline of a goatee. For audiences used to clumsy rubber aliens, this monster was a psychological gut punch, proving sci-fi could explore the darker corners of the human mind. Number 5. The electronic score first. If the monster terrified audiences visually, the score got inside their heads. Forbidden Planet was the first movie to feature an entirely electronic soundtrack. Composers Bebe and Louis Barron created strange, pulsing tones that felt alien, giving the film a sound unlike anything before it. But the musicians' union hated it. They refused to recognize the Barons' work as music, forcing MGM to credit it as electronic tonalities. The Barons didn't care. They had made history. Their experimental sounds influenced everything from 2001: A Space Odyssey to modern synth scores. At a time when audiences were used to swelling orchestras, Forbidden Planet dropped them into a world that sounded just as alien as it looked. Pretty wild so far, right? And we're only halfway through. If you thought a robot operator getting drunk and crashing in a $100,000 costume was insane, stick around, because what's coming next is even crazier. We'll get into how Forbidden Planet reused Wizard of Oz sets to build alien worlds, the shocking early career of Leslie Nielsen, and the Shakespearean play that secretly inspired the whole movie. Trust me, You don't want to miss what's ahead. Number 6. Filmed on MGM sets. The alien landscapes of Forbidden Planet were impressive for the time, but here's the secret. They were built on the same sound stages MGM had once used for The Wizard of Oz. Those colorful, fantastical sets became the foundation for an entirely new world. The production was so ambitious that the set designer let the budget quietly spiral out of control, figuring the results would be worth it. By the time MGM noticed, it was too late, but the gamble worked. Forbidden Planet became the first film set entirely on another planet, something unheard of in the 1950s. The film's look set the tone for the next generation of sci-fi, from Star Trek's sleek starships to Star Wars' sprawling alien landscapes. Number 7. Young Leslie Nielsen. When audiences think of Leslie Nielsen today, they picture a deadpan comedy genius. But long before Airplane and The Naked Gun, Nielsen was Hollywood's idea of a serious leading man. In Forbidden Planet, he was only 29 years old, playing Commander John J. Adams, the brave, no-nonsense leader of the expedition. At the time, Nielsen was under contract with MGM, and the studio tapped him as their rising star. He appeared in war films, thrillers, and dramas, but it was Forbidden Planet that gave him one of his earliest big roles. Watching him in the film today is almost surreal. Fans who grew up laughing at his comedy see him as a stone-faced space hero. It's proof that even Hollywood's funniest stars sometimes start out deadly serious. Number 8. Origin and inspiration. The roots of Forbidden Planet go back to Shakespeare. Writers Irving Block and Alan Adler drew heavy inspiration from The Tempest, the story of a powerful man living in isolation with his daughter and battling monsters of his own making. Sound familiar? Originally, the script was called Fatal Planet and was set in the year 1976 on Mercury. In that version, the monster wasn't psychological, but a literal alien. But MGM brought in writer Cyril Hume, who transformed the story into something deeper. The setting moved to a distant world, the characters shifted, and the monster became a manifestation of the mind itself. Shakespeare's DNA remained, but in a way audiences had never seen. The Tempest rewritten as a space-age cautionary tale. Number 9. Title change for marketing. Names matter in Hollywood, and Forbidden Planet wasn't always called that. The original title, Fatal Planet, sounded grim, almost like a warning. MGM executives feared it would turn audiences away, so they changed one word, and everything shifted. Forbidden promised danger, mystery, and allure. It was a title designed to spark curiosity. In an era crowded with B-movies like It Came from Outer Space and The Thing from Another World, Forbidden Planet stood out. The new name gave the film an edge of intrigue, and it worked. People showed up wanting to know what secrets the Forbidden World held, proving how much power a single word can have at the box office. Number 10. Remake struggles. With all its influence, you'd think Forbidden Planet would have been remade by now. Studios have tried, again and again. Since the 2000s, names like James Cameron and Joel Silver have been attached. New Line, DreamWorks, and Warner Brothers have all taken shots at developing a modern version, and every single attempt has failed. Even in the 2020s, reports of a remake resurface now and then, but nothing gets off the ground. Maybe the movie is cursed, or maybe it's something simpler. The original can't be topped. Forbidden Planet already blended Shakespearean drama, sci-fi spectacle, and groundbreaking effects in a way that feels untouchable. For once, Hollywood's obsession with remakes keeps hitting a wall, because this is one classic that doesn't need redoing. The electronics lab was a wiring beast. You'd think the special effects of a 1956 sci-fi would be modest, but Forbidden Planet went all in. The film's sprawling electronics lab wasn't just a set piece, it was an engineering project in itself. It used over 50,000 feet of wiring, 2,500 feet of neon tubing, and 1,200 square yards of plexiglass to bring its futuristic look to life. Buzzing and sparking with energy, MGM brought in a team of 15 electricians who worked a single, giant control panel with 110 separate switches. Every light flicker and pulse on screen was manually triggered. For audiences in 1956, this wasn't just a background, it was a visual statement that science fiction had grown up. Number 12. Robbie's design started in the laundry room. Robbie the robot's design looks futuristic even today, but his roots are surprisingly humble. Designer Robert Kinoshita had previously worked on washing machines, and he borrowed ideas from that world when building Robbie. His chest and legs were shaped to echo the rounded forms of washer tubs, giving the robot a sturdy industrial look. That blend of domestic appliance and sci-fi imagination made Robbie feel both believable and otherworldly. He wasn't just a shiny toy robot, he looked like a working machine, one that could exist in the real world. It's part of why audiences connected with him so strongly, and why his design remains iconic nearly 70 years later. Fact 13. Most ambitious camera work ever. Forbidden Planet wasn't just bold in design, it was a logistical beast behind the lens. George Folsey, the cinematographer, revealed that more than 2 years of technical planning went into pre-production just to figure out how to shoot the film. They had to light vast, surreal sets covering 4 of MGM's largest sound stages with painted cycloramas and impossible color gradients for CinemaScope and Eastman Color. Every scene was a visual puzzle, so complex that Folsey praised his crew for their precise coordination in pulling off the lighting and photographic effects. Hidden fact: 14. Starship C-57D inspired Star Trek's USS Enterprise. The sleek flying saucer starship in Forbidden Planet, designated the United Planets cruiser C-57D, didn't just look cool. It went on to inspire future sci-fi icons. Its lens-shaped design and upper dome later influenced the saucer section of Star Trek's USS Enterprise. Even Lost in Space's Jupiter 2 took visual cues from the C-57D. So, the design legacy of Forbidden Planet didn't end on Altair 4. It helped shape the look of space travel in the decades that followed. Nearly 70 years later, Forbidden Planet still feels ahead of its time. It wasn't just another space adventure, it was a bold experiment that pushed every boundary Hollywood had. From Robbie the Robot's $1 million legacy to a soundtrack that redefined movie music. From Shakespearean roots to censorship battles, the film's story is as fascinating as the movie itself. Its influence is impossible to ignore. Without it, we might not have Star Trek 2001, A Space Odyssey, or even Star Wars in the form we know them today. It proved that sci-fi could be smart, stylish, and thought-provoking, not just cheap thrills with rubber suits. And maybe that's why every remake attempt has failed. The original already nailed it. Forbidden Planet remains one of the rare movies that feels timeless. Its visuals, its ambition, and its strange behind-the-scenes stories still capture imaginations. Nearly 7 decades later, it's not just a film. It's a reminder that when sci-fi dares to dream bigger, it can change cinema forever. So, which fact blew your mind the most? Leave a comment and let us know, and of course, subscribe if you like hidden facts of classic Hollywood.